bold, so to speak, to also incorporate into our train of thought here that what if even let's say that the Mayan calendar, because again this is another actually quite huge or large factor in all this in regards to how people feel about the coming years, meaning that if many people project a catastrophe around 2012 or even expect that this should occur, that could also be a very dubious factor here if you follow what I'm saying here.
Yes. And another thing that I believe that I've deciphered from what the magicians do, and that's who I believe is in charge. I don't believe in politics. Is to usurp our free will, and also we get what we expect. And so if they can program the consciousness of America or of the world, then we actually generate that through our consciousness. I'm certain of this by their tactics.
Right.
That we can actually generate reality, and so they'll program it into us, and then we'll make it so.
So, I mean, is this a good thing then? If I mean, what I'm getting at is if you're talking to these Maya and they actually are predicting a catastrophe at 2009, I mean, this is actually, that's not so good, right? That's not good, But they're saying though still, you're saying that this can be eased or this could be, doesn't have to be so rough, right?
No, and once again, they base that all in the consciousness of the people.
Mm-hmm.
That if the people could return to their sacred heart, that this would quell some of the destruction.
Right.
And so, they do it through ceremonial fires, but it can be done just through your own heart. The ceremonies are really just a way of triggering the brain into a particular way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I believe that our spiritual nature is at the key of all of this, or is at the heart of this.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And we can change things, and it won't require direct action, but more just faith.
Mm-hmm.
As you start to realize the universe is alive and loving and caring, and that the humans on this planet aren't all evil. I haven't met any evil people. I see them on TV, but
right. And even that, if you think about it, is a play. It's a put on. It's an image that is being projected, and in many cases, I can feel that they actually benefit from actually projecting fear and projecting the idea that they are all powerful and all knowing and all, they can, they run the world. We are evil men here, but that actually might not be the case if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a programming.
Now watch how they do the social engineering on the same level that when they needed an Antichrist to bring about the League of Nations, they brought out Hitler, or to bring in the UN.
Sure.
And then you'll see the same Kabbalistic code in this use. So that was actually how I predicted W being railroaded into office, because I had deciphered the meaning of Volkswagen in Kabbalism. And so when they introduced the Antichrist Hitler, they put out the symbol of the VV, which is 66 in Kabbalism, and they interwove these two V's in the Volkswagen logo, which was Hitler's military machine, and it making 666 in Kabbalism.
Right.
And so when I saw that they were getting ready to create a new Antichrist and to make America into Satan, like that's what we were supposed to be turned into, so that they could always turn back and say, look what happens when you give liberty to a nation. We must rule you. So they created this golden land of America with a false terrorist attack throwing the tea into the harbor, and told everybody the streets were paved to gold, and then got everybody to believe America was great. And their whole plan was to bring it to a conclusion of Satan and have this W be railroaded in. And that's how I predicted W, because his letter is the same as the Antichrist, the 66.
Right. Exactly. So can that be applied to the next upcoming one? I mean, me personally, I feel that a Democrat is probably going to go in. It's always been like, it's a flip between the both sides all the time. Republicans have it for a while, then Democrats, and it never seems to kind of stick to one party for too long. So just out of, looking at the past and bringing up pattern recognition, you can see that, okay, probably a Democrat is going to get in there. But is it, Obama or Hillary? What do you think?
Well, okay. my prediction when I said W would be railroaded into office, and I had reasons, and I know why he was railroaded into office, and this is all psychological warfare. My full prediction was W will be railroaded into office, and then he will be the last American president. And so I am still standing by that there is going to be a major surprise in October. I'm predicting the date 10/13, and that they will begin World War III, so that there will not be another election in America. And I have a couple of reasons for believing this, and one that I must state, which is kind of harsh, but we're looking at this brotherhood, the Freemasons, who have been in charge of this country from its creation. Over half our presidents have belonged to a single fraternity. This is not coincidence. And they have a plan. Now, this brotherhood does not allow black people or women into their collective.
Well,
and this would be why we've had only aristocratic white males as our presidents. So I do not expect them to allow Hillary or Obama into this scenario. I think it's all a ruse. I don't believe there's going to be another election here in America. I think it hits the fan this year.
That's an interesting perspective.
I've been waiting 10 years to see if my prediction was correct. I made that prediction 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, we'll have to. If we're around for that long, we'll just have to see, right?
I mean, we're talking in the next few months.
Sure.
October 13th is my prediction.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, it's an interesting perspective, and let's keep it in mind and see what happens.
Have we talked about how I predicted 9/11?
We have a little bit, I guess. But do it for us. We don't have that much time, but give us the short version if you can of that.
Okay, the short version is, and this will lead into the 10/13.
Right.
Was that I was focused on the number 9/11. I knew they needed a major terrorist strike in the middle of September because the Homeland Security bill comes up every October. And so I knew it would be the middle of September, and I picked 9/11 because I had noticed HW announcing the New World Order for the first time publicly on 9/11. Had I known that the World Trade Center and the Pentagon both had their Masonic cornerstone laying ceremonies on 9/11 in their respective building years, I would have predicted both targets as well, because I was focused on the number of 9/11, which is basically a Luciferian number, where 10 is the unification, the hermaphrodite, the God number, and 11 being the magician, the one step above God once you've gained your powers of miracles. So 9/11 skips 10, which is skipping God, and it's basically a Luciferian way of achieving this without going through God. And I was focused on this 9/11. So as I realized that these cornerstone ceremonies had occurred on 9/11, I started looking for other ritual dates that might be incorporated into Masonic cornerstone laying ceremonies, and it turns out that 10/13, which is the infamous Friday the 13th that the Templars were all murdered in 1307, is the date that they put the cornerstone, George Washington put the cornerstone in the White House. And so, and then it turns out, now if you know, the Lone Gunman, that was a spin-off from the X-Files, had the full 9/11 truth in it months before the actual events occurred. So they had planes flying into the Twin Towers in their pilot episode of the Lone Gunman, and the event hadn't occurred yet. And if you look at Chris Carter's production company, of course, it is also 10/13.
Right.
So that is where I've come up with this prediction. I just kind of carried on with the idea of these Masonic cornerstones. And I'm almost expecting an Independence Day sort of scenario of giant flying craft coming over Washington, D.C.
Really?
But this is because I have seen giant flying V-shaped craft,
Yeah.
So that was really how I came about 9/11 and got it right on target.
Right. Well, that's interesting, and because we talked about 10/13 last time you were on the show, and the past year then 2007, nothing happened in regards to what I could pick up from the news. It might have been some minor, communication or signal, so to speak, going on there. But really, if you think about it, in the way that people talked about the millennium, that the real millennium celebration shouldn't occur from 99 over to 2000, but actually from 2000 over to 2001. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Much the same way, it would make more sense that 2008 would be the 700-year celebration of the Templar. You follow my train of thought there?
Right, yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
That's possible.
I don't think it really necessarily has to be on a 700th anniversary or anything.
Sure,
they
of
just
course.
need these ritual numbers encoded into the consciousness, and so now as 911 is so now encoded into us.
Yeah, right. Well, that's very interesting, and again, we'll see what happens when.
Yes, exactly.
You know, on 1013.
I didn't know I was right on 911 either.
Yeah.
I didn't even see that it happened. I didn't have television. I just had a dozen people at my door asking me how I knew, and I was going, "No, what?"
Right.
What was really intriguing was that 3 of those people had their 20s folded, and I don't know if you've seen that, but you can fold the 20 and show the Twin Towers being hit.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And you go through a 5 through the 100, and those were created in 1996, the same year they built the Stargate in Nashville. But so I thought it very intriguing that these 3 people out of this dozen people that came to my door all knew about folding that dollar on 911. And I said, "How do you know this?" And they said, "Oh, it's on the internet." And so I firmly believe that the Brotherhood and their magician's ways have interjected that into the consciousness. There was no way somebody just happened to figure that out on 911. They knew, and they were waiting to slip it into the consciousness. And I also believe that these are the subtle ways in which they usurp our free will. Because here we've been using this money over and over, and in our conscious mind or our unconscious mind, we can form puzzles like this.
Yeah.
And so even though we didn't know it, we were seeing the Twin Towers fall for 5 years before it actually happened.
Well, that's an interesting point, exactly, because that's, as we talked about before, a part of the ritual, so to speak, is to let you know in some way, some little hint somewhere, meaning that you unconsciously actually should pick up on it. So you're kind of going along with it because it actually was there in front of you all of this time, and because of that, it's like you're inviting. It's like the vampire thing, you're inviting the vampire into your door. He's asking you, "Can I come in?" And you you allow it, so to speak. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. You know what? I want to change gear here in our last 10 minutes or so and talk a little bit about the I guess your upcoming appearance as it were on Channel 5, a Swedish program. I want to hear a little bit about the background, how this happened, and if you know when it's going to be aired, and if you would recommend anyone watching it all, or do you think it's going to be a ruse? What do you think?
I knew nothing. I was told that there was a Swedish TV crew coming to film Extraordinary Americans.
Right.
And that they had hoped for a UFO story. And I said, "Oh, the UFOs is just a blip in my story." And so I said, "Sure, come on over." And I didn't know how they had found me or what led them to me, but I later found that they had called the studio here in Austin and asked for people that believed in their message, people that lived as they spoke.
Right.
And I'm definitely that. I definitely am bound to my mission. And so so I agreed to it, and they showed up that morning, and here are these 2 crazy Swedish fellas, Frederick and Philip, and they start just getting into me. They started talking about crack cocaine and crystal meth, and I'm like, "What's going on here?" And I'm trying to tell them my story and give them a little clue. Now I knew it was probably going to be a little bit hokey, and I wanted to kind of play with them a little bit. So I wanted to show them how the fish people from Sirius had taken over planet Earth. And so first I brought them into my office, and I had set everything up in my office so that I had everything at hand. If I wanted to explain something, I had it right there for me.
Right.
And I started talking to these guys, and they're just being goofy. And as I'm telling them about my father building nuclear missiles and chasing flying saucers for Blue Book and being on Killer One submarine with Jimmy Carter, they start yelling to the guy in the bathroom, "Hey, are you in there doing the